Hi, with this movie we will show you how to create dynamic dependent drop-down lists for large data sources. Large data sources contain more than 3,000 records. They require server-side filtering. We added two drop-downs on our page. The first one, we list countries from a database table, and the second one, we list airports in the selected country. Open the Server Connect panel. We add a new folder for our server actions. Let's call it Airports. Add a new server action inside it. And add name for it. We call it Countries, as it will list the countries from our database. Right-click Steps, and add a database connection. And add database connection. Load a connection, or create a new one, if you have not done this yet. Then, right-click the database connection step, and add a database query. Add a name for it. And set up the query options. Add the table, which stores the data, for the first dropdown. And add the columns you need for it. Click OK. And save the action file. Now, we need to create another server action for the second dropdown, which will be filtered by the value of the first one. Add a name for it. Under Globals, right-click Get, and add a variable. We will use this variable to filter the query for the second dropdown. We call it Country, as we will assign the value from the country dropdown to it. Now, right-click Steps, and add database connection. Load your database connection. Right-click the connection step, and add a query. Add a name for this query, and edit its options. Add the table, which stores the data for the second dropdown. And then add the columns, which you need to use in the dropdown. Open the Filters tab. Here, we add the column which our query should be filtered by. In our case, this is the country column. Click the Dynamic Data button for the filter value, and select the Get variable, which we already created. Click the Select button. We'll leave the condition field empty, as we do not need a condition to be applied here. Click OK. And save the action file. Now, as our server actions are ready, let's bind the data to the dropdowns. Open the App Connect panel, and click Add App Connect to this page. You can see our dropdowns, which appear in the App Structure panel. Right-click App. Under Data, select Server Connect, and click the Select Server Action button. We select the server action, which we created for the first dropdown. Click Select. Then, select the first dropdown, either in the app structure, or directly click it on the page. Select the Dynamic Data Picker, in order to select a data source, for the first dropdown. Expand the Server Connect component, which we've just created. And under Data, select your query. And click the Select button. Then, select a text for the drop-down options. We select the binding, which we want to show in the drop-down. Then, let's assign a value for the drop-down options. Select the binding, which will set the value for the options. This value will be used to filter the second query. Click Select. And we are done setting up the first dropdown. Now, let's set up the data source for the second dropdown. Right-click the Server Connect component. select Insert after Data, Server Connect, and click the Select Server Action button. Then, select the server action, which we created for the second drop-down, and click Select. Click the No Auto Load option. We do not need to load this data source when the page loads. We only need it to load when the value in the first drop-down changes. Then, we need to assign a value to the get variable, called country, which we created in the server action. We bind the value of the first drop-down here. Click Select. Now, the data source for the second drop-down will load when the data in the first drop-down changes. Let's bind this data source to our second drop-down. Select it. Click the Dynamic Data Picker button to select the data source. In the data source, which we created for the second drop-down, under Data, select your query, and click the Select button. Then bind the data for the option text and values. And we are done setting up the dynamic data for both of our drop-downs. Now, let's add a static first option to our first drop-down. Select the first drop-down. In Dreamweaver Properties Inspector, click List Properties and add a new item. We enter Select Country for its text and leave the value empty. This way, nothing will be displayed in the second drop-down until the user selects some value here. Click OK. And we are done. Let's preview the results. You can see, no values are displayed in the second drop-down until we select a value in the first one. The data source in the second drop-down is being refreshed when the value in the first one changes. That's how easy it is to create dynamic dependent drop-downs for large data sources using DMX Zone App Connect.